So understanding that about 80% of your revenues are going to come from 20% of your existing customers. These also could be your VIPs if you do not currently have a whole lot of business, is to understand that eventually, as you have a predictable business, 20% of your existing customers are going to yield you about 80% of the revenue that you receive, because they're going to continue to work with you, as well as they're going to continue to refer business to you. So the truth is that it's easier to keep a customer than it is to gain a new one. So understanding that client retention versus client acquisition, there is no comparison in terms of the amount it's going to cost you to acquire a customer versus what it would be to keep a customer. One of the ways that this is done is think of the Ritz Carlton. So a question for you is, who's familiar with the $2,000 rule from Ritz Carlton? If you are, go ahead and put that in the chat box for me, please. So I'm not getting anyone who's saying yes. And so understanding that with the Ritz Carlton, there is something that is known as the $2,000 rule. And what the Ritz Carlton has done is they have empowered everyone on their team to fix and resolve any issue that a potential customer is going to have up to $2,000. It does not matter what their role is. It does not matter their position or title within the organization of Ritz Carlton. Every single person can resolve a challenge that a customer is having up to $2,000 without needing approval. And the reason being is because Ritz Carlton has also figured out that the average value per customer is about $250,000. So if I, as a business owner, can see that a customer who is loyal and that feels respected is going to be, over the lifetime of their value for Ritz Carlton, is going to be $250,000, do you think that they're concerned about a $2,000 incidental? Right, absolutely not. So when we think of, this is also things where Ritz Carlton led the standard that was then adopted by other companies such as Apple, such as Starbucks. And so one of the things that Starbucks did is they did the exact same thing. They said, we realized that the average consumer from Starbucks is going to yield them about $14,000 in value over the lifetime of their patronage of Starbucks. This is why if something is wrong with your drink, they don't complain, they don't dispute it, they simply throw it away and they make you a new one exactly the way that you wanted it. There is no dispute, because it doesn't matter about throwing away the $5 latte if they know that there's a $14,000 value associated to that particular customer. And so this is a perfect example of client retention versus just client acquisition, right? So the data is clear that staying in a relationship with your database is the #1 way to get more business. This is far exceeds doing cold calling, being on a billboard, putting your face on the side of a bus. Everything is clear that the people who already know you, like you, and trust you is going to be the #1 way to get more business. So the cost of a bad experience, as many of you know, is that 21% or 25% will switch providers. If they don't like what you provide, if they didn't like the experience, they will absolutely switch providers, hands down. Each customer has the ability to have a 357,000 negative share response to you. Right now, just think about that for a moment. I post a negative response, and I also post that in multiple different websites. And then someone else had a negative response, and they chime in, they say, I agree. I also had a negative response. And then another person sees that it's trending, and algorithmically they're showing more and more people that are having a negative response to your experience. And so that is compounding, right? I hate to use this as an example. However, if anybody has been seeing, I see it through my social media, that Ellen DeGeneres is being under fire. And the reason why she's being under fire is because more and more people are sharing how horrible of an experience it has been to work with her and her show. And it started with one person speaking out. And then that person speaking out led to another person feeling comfortable speaking out. And more people are coming out, and it is having a negative effect on the Ellen DeGeneres show and Ellen DeGeneres. That is the power of negative shares, right? 19% of people will instantly lose trust if they have a bad experience. If it is a bad experience of which then no remedy is made or no attempt to remedy the situation is made, instantly 19% of those customers are going to lose trust, which then will lead to them switching providers. And then more so than not, 59% will have no relationship. And so what does a relationship mean? It is a mutually understood that I'm here for you, you're here for me, and we're working through that together. If there is no relationship, there is no loyalty. If there is no loyalty, there is no brand awareness. If there is no brand awareness, there is no future clients. If there are no future clients, there is no future business. If there is no future business, there is no future money. There is no future to you or your company if all of that moves away because of a bad experience. And so understanding this is also to understand that customers are more apt to share a negative customer experience than they are to share a positive one. That's why we have to constantly ask for testimonials and feedback and surveys, is because the natural inclination is to be happy when things move in a positive direction. And when we are angry, we want to make sure that something happens so it doesn't happen to other people. Plus, we also want someone to know that we have had a bad experience. That is just the universal truth. So one of the things to be mindful of is, where can your customer experience change? What are some tools that you have that can lead to your customer experience? Well, one of which is the Keller Williams consumer app and what it will be. Let's take a look. So how can you reimagine your customer experience? This is one of those questions that we really need to table because it's not going to be something that you're going to answer in a 2-minute exercise. However, just as Keller Williams International is ensuring that we're moving in the direction of having our customer experience, first you as the agent and then your client's experience using apps that are going to be helpful to empower them to make more informed decisions, to have the information instantly at their fingertips. How are there other areas of your business that we need to reimagine in terms of how your customer is going to experience it? Well, one of the ways, if you're not already doing it, is to include the Y4C2Ts. This is our belief system as a company, and so understanding that this is more than just the Wi-Fi password. Are you taking the opportunity to make sure that the Y4C2Ts is something that you're putting into your experience with a buyer or a seller? Do they clearly understand that you have a business that's based on win-win or no deal? Integrity to do the right thing. That number one of the 4 C's is that customers always come first. Notice it doesn't say customers are always right. It says that customers always come first. Followed by commitment in all things. Communication, seek first to understand. Right? So as we move through and we understand our Y4C2Ts, this has to be the foundation of a great customer experience. It has to be woven into the way that you interact with your clients, as well as how your team and your vendors and everyone else that's a part of your difficult transactions, that they understand the belief system and that it's in alignment with the way that they are showing up. So there are some takeaways and ahas. We're going to move right into chapter 1. We're going to hold some of these ahas and we're going to take our moments just so that we can be mindful of our time together. And so we need to know thy customer and thyself. And so one of the things in preparing for this, I thought it was interesting to kind of look in and say, what is it? What is the actual definition of customer? Well, you think of the root of the word customer is the word custom. And the word custom, by definition, is a habit, or it's a habit of making a decision. And so if you think about what a customer is someone who has the habit of continually to choose you. When given the opportunity to make a decision, they have the habit of choosing you. So we have to know thy customer, and then we have to know thyself. And I think that that's a huge aspect when we're looking at what is the customer experience, is how are we delivering on that, and how serious are we taking it when we think of the fact that that person is habitually choosing you over all other competition. So first is to understand that without customers, our business wouldn't be very useful, and we would not be in business, quite frankly, right? We have no purpose if we don't have any customers. So understanding the age of the customer is understanding the age of information. During the age of manufacturing, if someone wanted something, then a manufacturer would go back, they would draw up the design, they would figure out what kind of bare materials they would need, what they would charge for those materials plus labor. They'd have a quote, they'd come back to you in a couple days and they'd say, here's where we're at. Does that work for you? If so, then I'll go back and it'll take me a couple more days and then I'll build the actual item that you need. In the age of distribution, we already knew how to manufacture. We no longer had to think about the product as it would be designed. It was already in a design situation. So now was, how do we get the information to the customer, or how do we get the product to them? Well, we get it to them in minutes because we built out a distribution system that was having from the manufacturer to the store, right? We were able to do that, so we shaved from days down to minutes. Then from the age of distribution to the age of information, it was that you were able to find the information within seconds. And now, at the age of the consumer, which is where we are in the 21st century, it is that not only can you get information instantly, you can purchase and have the instant gratification that the product is on its way, it's already working to you, right? Kristen made a comment here in the chat box. She says, Gary Keller says that customer loyalty and mind share comes back to that they will give you your first shot to earn your business, and not that you automatically get it. So what do we have to do to earn the right to be in business with the people that we're in business with? That has been a foundational question of the Keller Williams system for a very long time. So posing that question, what do we have to do to earn the right to be in business with the people that we're in business with, is the same way of asking the question of what do we have to do to earn the right of this customer who's giving us our first shot? How do we earn their business, and how do we stay in business with that individual? Thank you for that, Kristen. I really appreciate it. So understanding the value of a customer, I alluded to this when I said that the Ritz Carlton had figured out that the average value of a customer to their hotels is about $250,000, or $250,000. Starbucks found out that the average value of their customer, is about $14,000. So what's the value of your customer? Well, the way to break this down is to kind of look at it this way, right? Someone buys a home with you. It's their first purchase at an average price of $259,000. But with an average commission, that's about $7,700, give or take, right? And then in 10 years, they sell that first home because you've stayed in communication with them. That home is also appreciated about 30%. And so that home sells for about $336,000, which is $10,000 of commission, plus they buy the next home, right? They're moving up into a bigger home. And so that is another $12,000 commission, right? And you see this as it moves through not just the life cycle of that particular customer, but what it looks like and what it means to you and your business. Well, in this example, you can see that the total value for this customer over the course of 20 years was about $67,000. Now, do you have the mindset when you're working with a customer today? Are you asking yourself the question, how am I showing up so that I can guarantee that they're going to be a customer for the next 20 years? Or are you dealing with frustrations in the now? You can't wait to get your check next Friday, and then you plan to never talk to them again because you can't believe how annoying they are. Just me? Is that just me that I've ever had that experience? Okay, so understanding that we have to have systems in place where we can exceed those expectations. We have to have our standards in place so that we can exceed those expectations, right? As we move through this process, we can see where we are able to always put the customer first so that we can have customers for life, customers that will equal a value of $67,000 or more. So one of the things that I'd like for you to do, we're not going to do this now, and don't worry, at the end of this course, I'm going to be sending you a link that's going to have all of the information that you're going to need so that you can dig deeper in some of these activities. But I do want you to be thinking of what is the average home value today? And you're going to work through this process of what's the average home value today, and just take an assumption that it's going to appreciate by 30% in the next 10 years. Now, some people would say, well, it should appreciate for more than that. Okay, but what happens within a 10-year plan or a 10-year cycle? We see values appreciate, we see certain things correct within the market, and so we're just taking an average appreciation of 30%. We would all love more than that, but an average appreciation of 30%. And you move through this process of watching as someone moves through from buying their first home, buying a larger home, then downsizing and what that might look like, right? And you'll find the total value from that example. Another thing that can be done is to actually look at your database and then take the full amount. So in this example, you can see what would it look like if I had 1,000 people in my database, and that the average repeat customer is probably about 29%, and the average referral from customers is going to be about 29%, right? So you see an average database of 1,000 people with an average repeat customer database of 290, referral of 290, putting those two together of 580, with the value of one client that you did just a moment ago, right? As we walked through and we said $67,455, then the average value of this example database would be about $39 million. So when you do your own example, right, from the graph before, the slide before, you will then do the exact same thing. How different would your world be if you could say over the course of the next 20 years of your career, you would be yielding about $39 million of income? Now, of course, that's gross. So let's just say 40% of 39 million. Kristen, if you could do that for me, grab a calculator if it's not already in your head, and tell me what is 40% of $39 million? Yeah, about $15.6 million in gross, or in income, not gross, in profit. Based on this example, many of you have more than 1,000 people in your database. Some of you have less than 1,000 people. And so I posed this question in some of the other courses that I teach, and I asked the question, how different would your world be if the people in your database, if all of the people, in this case, if 1,000 people in your database, how different would your world be if 1,000 people felt like they were a part of your inner circle? One of the things I really want to leave with you today before this class is over is the idea that you are in the people business until the time that those people have a real estate need, and then you're in the real estate business. Now, if you're watching this and you're not with the real estate industry, that's okay. It still is applicable to you. You are in the people business until they have a need for your services, and then you're in your service industry business. So are we acting as if we're in the people business? Are we treating our customers like we're in the people business, or are we treating our customers like we're in the service or transaction business? It's going to be wildly different in terms of the way that you show up and the way that your customers have the experience with you in your business. So one of the other things that you can do is you can use the data of what people say as they're being surveyed on what's most important to them. So customers need your help, right? And they make it abundantly clear that the reason why they need a real estate agent is for the top reasons here. Well, there's a lion's share there that says that 52% of buyers feel the need for hiring an agent because they need help finding the right home. That's then followed by negotiating terms, helping to price the negotiations, to show them comparable properties, and then to help with paperwork. However, if we were to take just finding the right home and negotiating terms, we would see that we're at 66%. Now, does your buyer guide make it abundantly clear that my number one priority when working with you is to help you find the right home and to make sure that you are negotiating terms that make you feel like this is a win-win? Right? I'm going to take this information and I'm instantly going to be using that language when I'm interacting with customers. It's going to be in my supporting material. It's going to be in the dialogue during my consultation. I'm going to use the information. I'm going to use the power of the National Association of Realtors survey, and I'm going to use it to empower myself and my team so that we're speaking to the needs, and even the needs that my customers may not even know that they have, ahead of time. Same thing with sellers. So sellers said that the most important thing for them is to help market their home, right? So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, my number one priority is that you understand is that I am here to market your home. I'm to think outside of the box and be creative to ensure that your home gets in front of as many eyes as possible. Since we know that 80% of buyers are going to use a buyer's agent, my number one priority is to market to the broker community. Since again, most of those buyers are going to be using a broker. And then after that is then also to make sure that we're making the case to the actual buyers about the value of your home. In addition to that, my other reason for being here is to help you price your home competitively so that it can be in alignment with your goals of making the most amount of money in the time frame that works for you. I literally can take, right, break script for a moment, I can take the data from the survey and I can incorporate it directly into my communication with my customer. So I'm speaking to the needs based on that national survey, right? What customers are looking for in an agent, right? So in the About Me section of your seller's guide or your buyer's guide, What is going to be the language of your biography on your custom websites that you send to them? Well, buyer wants to know that an agent is honest and trustworthy. That shows up 19% for buyers. That also shows up 19% for sellers. That's followed by agent experience, which we can also use that as broker experience. So if you might not have full experience, leverage the brokerage that you're with. Leverage Keller Williams International. So when talking about the buyer is wanting to know that an agent is honest and trustworthy, how do we translate honesty and trustworthiness with someone that we just met? Well, it might be from testimonials from past clients, referrals from those past clients. It can also show up in the fact that you have the Y4C2Ts clearly identified in your material, and it's something that you take time to speak on, right? Kristen, thank you so much for meeting with me tonight. I really appreciate it. I do want to go through and just tell you a little bit about me and about the belief system that our team has, if you don't mind. And so what that's known as is the Y4C2Ts, which starts with win-win or no deal. I want you to know that I am coming from this place that it absolutely has to be a win for you, a win for me, and a win for the other parties. We believe in that system. We're not about it being adversarial. TV wants to make you feel like it's us against them, and yet you are wanting to purchase a home, and the seller is wanting to sell a home. And so we want to make sure that they feel like you're going to take care of that home and kind of passing the torch forward of the work that they've done. And at the same time, you want to know that you're being taken care of and that you're not being sold something that is deceiving or not exactly as it's being marketed. That's followed by integrity. We believe in being a person of integrity. It's how we run our business. It's the people that we work with. I want to know that the people that I work with that are a part of my team are people of their word. They're going to do what they say they're going to do, and that's exactly what my job is here. Is I want you to know that we are here absolutely to help you find a home and to help you negotiate those terms in a way that's going to make you feel comfortable and confident that this was the right decision. We want to earn your business, and we're going to make sure that every day we're showing up at that level. That's followed by the 4 C's, of which the customer always comes first. And I want you to know that I'm always taking your needs and your wants into consideration when speaking to the other parties, when looking at homes, when through this entire process, making sure that we are putting you and your needs first. That's then followed by commitment, right? So you're moving through, as you continue to move through, of trust starts with honesty. You'll notice that in the belief system, if you look at the Y4C2Ts, you're going to see the words integrity. You're going to see the words trust. You're going to see the words honesty. That's not by default. That's absolutely by design, because right here it says that the thing that buyers and sellers are looking for is an agent that is honest and trustworthy, right? Focusing on the top needs and making sure that your language is based on those top needs is how you can show up in a way that's going to speak to the customer without them even having to vocalize to you what was most important. So what is your story? What's the story that you want your customers to tell about you? We are going to do this exercise here, even though we're going to pick up a little bit of speed. I would love for you in the chat box to say, what is the story that you want your customers to tell about you? How do you want that experience to be, whether it's about you or it's about your team? What is the narrative that you want to be told? Go ahead and put that in the chat box for me, please. Okay, so Rachel said that she helped them change their life for the better. That's the story that she wants her customers to say about her. Okay, absolutely. What else? Someone else share. What's a story that you want your customers to tell about you? So John said that John assisted me every step of the way, asking probing questions that guided me ultimately in finding a better house than I ever imagined that I'd purchase. I love that, John. Excellent. That's really great. Understanding that this story, are we asking ourselves the story that we want our customers to tell, and are we showing up at the level that's going to help fulfill that story? Right? We want to make sure that we're constantly from that perspective. So understanding being customer-centric is that there are attributes that are going to equate to being a customer-centric agent. Is the words that pop up are to be a good listener, to exceed expectations, to make sure that customers come first, that we are communicating at a high level, that it's a memorable experience, hopefully a positive, memorable experience, that we're understanding and that we're caring and that they felt valued, right? When we take those attributes and we match that with the agent, again, if you're attending this course and you are a team leader, you're a rainmaker, you have people that are part of your team of where you're trying to figure out, how do I define my customer experience so that they can deliver the same way? The first is to make sure that your attributes are in alignment with the people that are part of your team. Are your attributes and your culture clearly defined? And it is something that if you walked away and I was to ask them, what are your attributes, or what is the culture of the team, would they say the same things that you would say? Right? Shobha said that she delivered more than what she promised. And Rachel said that the experience was both seamless and professional. Absolutely. That is having a customer-centric process. So in order to stay relevant, we absolutely have to know our market and our demographics. So being a local market expert is how people can feel a relevance. They can feel a sense of confidence in both you and your team by making sure that you know what's happening, how you compete against the competition, what are the opportunities in order to take advantage of the market. What are the different demographics, both in the neighborhoods of your market, as well as what are the demographics of your customer? How are you showing up and speaking to them? I teach another class that is the psychographics of social media, which is the thinking or the thought process or how different demographics use their social media. We need to know how the different demographics consume their information and make sure that we are there. That way we move into knowing their preferred communication. If someone is a phone person, right, they would like to speak or be in person, then we're going to set something up either on the phone or maybe even on Zoom, right? Someone who says that they like to be on the phone, they like to hear inflection, might be a person who would like to visually see you, right? They want to be able to see your expression, hear your syntax, watch your body language. All of those things might be exceeding the expectation of someone who wants to be on the phone. Now, someone who is looking to text because they want short answers, they want it to be bullet pointed, well, that is also a way that how could we see, or we can exceed expectations around their preferred communication. And then in order to stay relevant, we have to know our value proposition as it stands to them specifically, right? So this is from the perspective that my value proposition is going to be different. If I'm communicating with someone who's thinking about selling and they are in a 55 plus community, I'm going to communicate with them differently than I am for someone who's a first-time home buyer. The value proposition that I have for someone who has a beachfront condo is going to be different than the way that I'm going to sell myself for someone who has a pre-war bungalow in Kenwood. Understanding that your value proposition, if we go back to the customer experience and the myths around customer experience, is that it is not a one-size-fits-all. It has to be unique to each person and is tailored to their wants and needs. So one of the things from the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, or what we refer to as the MREA, is that top agents can easily explain what sets them apart and what will provide to them amongst anyone else, right? How did they stand apart from their competition when you hire them? And that is the value proposition. If you think of the word proposition, right, it's that I must elevate, right? I must prop up my value amongst my competition. So the value proposition is not just why should I hire you? The real question of your value proposition is why should I hire you and not hire anybody else? It's not because they're bad. It's that my value has to far exceed any of my competition, that it doesn't even look like we are on the same level playing field. And so think of that for a moment. Do I communicate that effectively? If you think about before you got into real estate, many of you got into real estate maybe within the last year or maybe even within the last 3 years. If you think of how many people were on your Facebook or in your world that you knew that were real estate agents, and did you think that they were all the same? I know that that was the case in my family, is that I have family members that have sorority sisters, right? They have a sorority sister that they've known for 20 some odd years who's a real estate agent. Now in my family member's mind, there's no difference between me and her sorority sister. There's no difference in my knowledge versus her sorority sister. There's no difference in the number of transactions that I've done than her sorority sister. There's no difference in the way that I market homes than the way that her sorority sister does. And I'm not saying that her sorority sister is better or worse. What I'm saying is that it is not my family member's job to know why my value is better than my competition. That is my job. Are you doing a good enough job of making sure that the people in your world know that, yes, they might know 9 real estate agents, but you're the only one that they would ever hire? And if the answer is no, then I hope that what we take from here is that we have to build a plan to share our story so that people constantly know that our value proposition is way higher than the people that we're in competition with. And the way that you can do this is also to leverage the company that you're with. By being with Keller Williams, you are with the #1 company in the country, based on agent count, based on sales volume, based on units sold. Well, maybe your local buyer or seller doesn't care about internationally. So what about locally? Well, you're with the #1 brokerage in all of South Pinellas, right? When we take the Keller Williams of downtown and Gulf Beaches and Seminole, we put those together, we talk about market share. When you hire me, you are employing more than 500 agents that sell more real estate than anyone else in South Pinellas. Now, what that means for you is that as soon as I leave here, I'm going to go back to my office and I'm going to create a buzz about your property before we even have one picture taken or one room is videographed. That is the power of making sure that we let the brokerage community, especially those brokers that sell more than anyone else, about your property, because we have the luxury of selling many, many homes from within because someone else in my office has a buyer for your property. That is a way of executing value proposition. When we talk about customer experience, the more detailed, the more data-driven, the more statistical that you can have to back up the support of we're #1. Well, based on what? I've got a mug that says I'm the #1 dad. Just because you can say #1, but you can't actually prove why you're #1, gives people a reason to say why. This is the Verizon is #1, and AT&T is #1, and now Sprint is #1, right? We hear these things in the same industry, and we're like, how could they all be #1? How can Chevy have more of these trophies, but Ford can have more of these trophies? I thought one was better than the other. How are they both #1? When you just say that you're #1 without being able to support that, it's going to give someone a reason not to have trust. So being able to make sure that the way that you're effectively communicating your value is one that is based on data and things that you can support. This is why the Market Center wants to provide this information for you through graphs and through other things that you can incorporate into your marketing material so that it just further cements your value. Okay? So understanding chapter 1 of knowing thy customer and knowing thyself, as well as our introduction, we're going to save the ahas because we've got 5 more chapters to go and I've got an hour left, but this is some of the heavy lifting in the beginning, is to understand that we now need to move into the 5S model, right? So we set expectations, we serve the customer, we survey the customer, we surpass expectations, and then we sustain the relationship. Where we start with is how do we set those expectations? So 1, is that we have to present our value proposition, right? As an agent, setting our expectations. What is your experience going to be like when you work with me? 2 is then to listen to the customer. We need to listen to their needs and their concerns. We need to negotiate where you can serve them. We then inquire and understand their expectations. And then we verify that there is congruency between our customer and our business. And then lastly, we seek agreement and make sure that we are setting mutual expectations between both the agent and the customer. So understanding, and I know that we talk about fiduciary and functionary, I want you to think of this as instead of being transactional and being relationship-based, right? So kind of get rid of the word functionary and fiduciary and think instead of being transactional, being relationship-based. Number 1, all customers want peace of mind. And then 2 is to kind of break down and understand that a transactional-based individual tells and sells, right? I'm here to churn and burn. I want your money. I want the commission check. Someone who's relationship-based is going to serve, is going to educate, is going to guide. Someone who's transactional is going to respond to needs, while someone who is relationship-based is going to anticipate those needs. Someone who's transaction-based is going to assume little responsibility. And for someone who's relationship-based, they're going to accept high responsibility, right? In terms of mistakes, in terms of the experience, you are going to take ownership. Someone who's transactional is just going to make sure that the task is done. Someone who's relationship-based is going to own the results. Someone who's transactional is just going to deliver information. Or someone who's based on building relationships is going to advise and consult. Now, this is where we have to be careful, right? And I'm sure the broker that is watching this is firing off because of fiduciary. So understand that what we're going to do in terms of advising, which we don't do, in consulting, is that we are going to provide all of the information that we have access to and give that to the customer so that they can make an informed decision. We can also, as I love what Kristen talks about often, is be the source of the source. So instead of just delivering information or telling them to go Google it, you can make sure that you're providing the information for them to make an informed decision, or you can guide them to the person who's going to be the expert on that particular topic. For someone who's transactional, is just going to meet expectations, where someone who's relationship-based is going to exceed expectations. Transactional is absolutely replaceable, where someone who's based on a relationship is irreplaceable. And then as you can see on the bottom, it says this is the big difference between low dollar and high dollar. So the truth is that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, right? And so being mindful of this is that it doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter how great your system is. If it doesn't feel like the system was built for me, it feels like it was built for you so that you can get rid of me faster, then the customer is not going to feel like they've been listened to, that they've been cared for, that this was a unique experience for them. They're going to feel like they're a part of an assembly line and that they could much rather go somewhere else. Once we've set those expectations, we then need to serve the customer. And serving the customer looks like our words and our actions equal our integrity. And your integrity is challenged every time that you fail to deliver on what you said you would do. Just want you to sit in that for a moment. Your integrity is challenged every time you fail to deliver on what you said you would do. So when we talk about losing trust with customers, also equaling a bad experience, is probably from where you failed to deliver on the thing that you said that you were going to do for them. People conduct business with people that they trust. We know this to be a fundamental truth, and it shows up by having standards. So having standards looks like the myth is my clients will only work with me, only I can deliver quality service. Well, the truth is actually that your clients aren't loyal to you. They are loyal to the standards that you represent. So as long as someone from your team is delivering the same level, if not better level of standards than you would, then that is what the customer is going to be loyal to. What we understand with new business is that every time that we do new business, is that as transactions increase, if we're constantly having to go out and find business, right? Build relationships with for sale by owners we didn't know, expireds that we didn't know. That's what we're doing. The more listings that we take, the more business that we take, the service level is going to go down because I have to work just as hard to gain new business as I did before. And so therefore it's going to cut into my level of service. Now, when I have new business plus I have referrals, then eventually what's going to happen is you have come list me's and you have referral calls and you have repeat calls where instead of having to go to an appointment just to be one of 3 agents that are being considered, when you're going to an appointment, it's already with a warm lead because your past client is their best friend and they set you up to say that you are absolutely the best and that they would be dumb to interview anyone else. I no longer have to go on quite as many appointments, or I don't have to put my armor on and slay the dragon because I'm able to do my transactions by making sure that I'm focused on my service. It's going to increase the transactions that I do because my standards have been there. Do you have standards, and do you know what those standards are? Do you know how to have standards around communication? What does that look like? If my expectation is that I'm going to hear from you instantly or that you always pick up the phone and you in fact never do that, am I having clear communication standards? Do I have a mindset and image standard both for myself and for my team? Is the expectation for us to show up a certain way? Is the expectation for us to speak in a certain way? Right? If someone comes to the team meeting and they're always being negative and they're talking about the Kool-Aid and this is a waste of time and it's all hokey, is that the mindset standard that you have for yourself and for the team? If someone shows up and they don't necessarily care about their image, they go and meet with a client and they're not changing the way that they look, or you've not had a conversation about the standards that you have for the image of your business, is that being clearly communicated? And then how do you enforce standards if you always bend on your standards? Standards should be immovable. Standards should be non-negotiable. So when I set standards for myself or for my team, if those standards are not being met, we have a problem. And are you willing to stand by your standards, or is it something that you move because you like a certain person or because they have something going on in their world and so you're being understandable? Making sure that we've clearly identified our standards, we enforce those standards, and we make sure that it is clearly communicated is how we have standards. 2 is that we need to leverage our technology. So in order to better serve our clients and set expectations, to serve them, we have to have leverage. That leverage can look like technology. So are you using Command? Are you using your Kelly app? And are you using the consumer app? There's an activity here, just as a reminder, we're not going to take a lot of time to do this. But if you don't have Kelly and if you don't have the consumer app downloaded, please download it. More so than downloading it, play with it. Make sure that you're using it. I just used it yesterday to ask what was my profit share for the month of July, right? Being able to utilize, and that was for Kelly, being able to utilize these tools is a way that you don't have to keep everything stored in your head. You're able to add someone to your database from your phone. It's a way to be able to share the consumer app with someone as opposed to just giving them a business card so that you can retain their information, right? Oh, so nice to meet you. Do you have a business card? Actually, I don't. I don't, right? And I'm not lying because that's my wallet. I don't carry any business cards. But what I do have is I have a really awesome app that's going to allow you to look at homes anywhere in the country based on your location. And if you find anything that you have questions about, you're able to call me, text me, email me directly from that app. What's a good phone number for you that I can text this app to you? Now I have their contact information, but I've posed it in such a way that they believe that they have the power. When they want to connect with me, they can do that directly from the app. What I know is that they had to give me, it's a currency exchange, they had to give me their phone number in order to gain access to the app. So now that I, as a salesperson, can follow up with them, ask them any questions, as opposed to the person who's praying that they didn't lose the card, or it's not at the bottom of their purse, or they haven't, spit out the gum and folded my business card in half and threw it away. Are you leveraging technology when you are with a technology company like Keller Williams? We then need to leverage people. Leveraging people looks like your team. Now, when people hear team, if they're an individual agent, they say, well, I don't have a team. Yes, you absolutely do. They might not be on your payroll, but you absolutely have a team. Your title rep, your lender, your home inspector, your photographer, your videographer, your stager, your transaction coordinator. These are people on your team. The agent who's going to be hosting the open house for you, who's another agent in the market center, they are a part of your team. They're helping with the customer experience. Your vendors also, for me, is synonymous with your team. But understanding that you can absolutely leverage some of your vendors when it comes to marketing, when it comes to flyers, when it comes to different things that they can do to help you build your business. So understanding that in order to serve, we set expectations, we leverage technology and people, and we have standards. Surveying, this is my favorite one. Rachel will tell you this. I love a good focus group. And what oftentimes happens is that most people don't survey their customer. What they want is they just want a testimonial so that they can tell people how great they are. I want to make sure that you're surveying the customer frequently throughout the process. How was the pre-qualification process with the lender? Oh, he was an a-hole. Okay. Well, I'd really like to know that, so I'm not sending more business to him, right? How was the process with working with our buyer's agent? Was he understanding? Was he patient? Was he listening? Actually not really. He kept showing me the same houses over and over and over again, even though I told him I was no longer interested in this particular area. Okay, that's something to know. Was it actually the buyer's agent, or was it maybe the concierge search in the MLS had the wrong filter or wasn't updated, and so therefore the customer felt upset because they said they weren't interested in something and it wasn't fixed? Are we asking for feedback? And one of the things that I love to do is I love to do a focus group. Now I want you to just think for a moment, especially those of you that are on here that are experienced agents, is I want you to think of and grab a group of people, and what would it look like if every single month you grabbed 10 to 12 people from your sphere, having a mixture of past clients as well as people that maybe you've identified as someone that you want to be a future customer who hasn't actually worked with you yet, and you bring them into a focus group, whether it be on Zoom or when restrictions are lifted a little bit and things are a little bit more comfortable to be around one another, to actually have a physical focus group and ask them questions. Questions like, if you were to receive a piece of marketing from a real estate team, what type of information would you be interested in and would look forward to receiving on a monthly basis? See, so many of us like to sit in our own world and we like to think up of what the customer would possibly want, as opposed to just picking up the phone and asking the customer, what would you like? Now, if I get 10 to 12 people to do that, and they feel heard, and they feel appreciated, and they told me exactly what they wanted to see on a postcard, how do you think that they're going to feel that next month when they receive the postcard that they helped to build? Now, how different would your world be if in 12 months, somewhere between 120 and 144 people from your database felt like they were heard and they contributed, even though all you did was the same focus group every single month, but with 10 to 12 new people, right? I'm a big advocate for using focus groups. I like to do focus groups for everything. And I think that the reason being is because it helps you build a process. And instead of you trying to think of what you want to do for them, they're the ones who get to craft that message for you, right? We then take that information, we want to track our customer experience score. This is a tool that you're going to be able to use that I'm going to provide to you at the end of this class that will be helpful. And then always make improvements, right? Both when we have wins as well as when we have failures on our team. Debbie says that she loves the idea of a focus group, and people love to tell you what they think. They absolutely do. And when they feel like they're a VIP because you handpicked them along with 9 other people or 11 other people, it's a much intimate setting than just sending them a survey monkey. I agree completely, right? So check in frequently. The customer's point of view is the only one that counts, right? I've already kind of hit on this a little bit. We like to ask the questions. Well, I remember an agent in our office called me and she asked me my opinion of what did I think the difference between using a 4x6 postcard versus a 5.5x8 postcard. I said I didn't really care. From a financial perspective, I think you can get double the postcards for 4x6 in terms of cost than you can by 5.5x8. Well, she was getting opinions from other agents that were saying, oh, you've got to do the bigger postcard. Okay. Well, I don't know of anybody who would not use your services just because you use the smaller postcard. But I said, you know what? I would much rather, during your lead generation time, that you pick up the phone and you call someone from your sphere, you ask them how they're doing, you move through the Ford model, and then you go, may I ask you a favor? I'm currently dealing with a challenge in my business and I would love your opinion. Have you any opinion, one way, the other way, or are you completely indifferent in terms of if you were to receive this postcard versus this postcard? Now we're asking people for their feedback and they feel appreciated and they feel like their voice is something that you value. It's all by design in terms of the customer experience that we can deliver. So understanding that 86% of customers, or consumers rather, read online reviews for local businesses. 68% of consumers were more likely to buy from a local business with positive online reviews. For 89% of consumers, testimonials are considered an effective content marketing tactic. And 90% of consumers say that buyer decisions are greatly influenced by positive reviews. So where do we put the reviews, right? I just had a closing and I say, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Can you go in and can you write a testimonial? And here's the link for Zillow. And here's the link for Realtor.com. And here's the link for Facebook. And here's the link for my Google page. What past client is going to have the ability to do that? First of all, my other recommendation is that you get a testimonial prior to closing. And the reason I say this is because your client has been conditioned that in order for them to get the house, they have to do whatever you say. Or in order to get the paycheck, right, their check for selling the home, they have to do whatever you say. The second that they get the check or the second that they get the keys to move into the house, all of a sudden, they don't have time for you. The same person who is texting you at 9:30 at night and 6 o'clock in the morning, all of a sudden says, oh, I'm so sorry, we've just been so busy unpacking. I promise I'll get to it. So you build in a system that 2 days before closing, you say, thank you so much, I really appreciate it. If you can do me a favor, right? I need to ask something in return. Please fill this out. My business is largely built on the referrals and the recommendations and testimonials of past clients. If you would please fill this out, I would greatly appreciate it. They're programmed and they're ready to go, right? So being mindful, it's just that simple tweak. Instead of the day or the day after closing, doing it a day or 2 days before closing, I promise you that your conversion rate of testimonials will skyrocket because of building in just that one simple thing in your system. Right, so then we have to conduct surveys. In my opinion, a survey is one thing. Another thing is to make sure that you're also doing a focus group and then asking for those testimonials and reviews. Then we need to track our customer experience score. So feedback is the breakfast of champions. Embrace it and learn from it, whether it is good, bad, ugly. We absolutely have to do it. How will you measure success? What are some of the things that you do to measure success? Is it always going to be that they write a review for you? Is success that they're going to give you a referral within 3 months? What does success look like for you? And I actually want that to be a live question. So go ahead and give me an answer. How will you measure success? Or how do you measure success on the customer experience as of right now? Before getting the the document that will help you to kind of score your customer experience. Go ahead and put that in the chat box for me, please. Okay, so Nicole said when she gets a good review. All right, John said when he gets a referral. Okay. Whatever it means for you, you have to have a system. And just as we do with anything else, it has to be a smart system, right? So it has to be specific. It has to be measurable. It has to be action-oriented. It has to be realistic, right? And it has to be time-bound. So understanding as we're moving through those activities, if I say that it's a referral, okay, well, is it a referral within 3 months? Is it a referral within 6 months? Is it a referral within 12 months? Is it a referral ever? When we say when we get a good review, okay, how good of a review? Is it 5 stars? Is it 4 stars? Do we want to maintain a certain number, right, among those that we review? What's the power of that, right? For me, a level of success is, do they pick up the phone when I call them after closing? Or do they avoid me? Do they show up to events that we invite them to? Or do they decline? Do they send us Christmas cards because we send them Christmas cards, right? I want to know, do they look at us as being a part of their inner world as much as we want them to be a part of ours? But it is up to you to say, how will you measure success? And is it something that can be a movable target? And then make improvements. Make improvements when things go right. So when things go right, we go, this is the new standard. That's what making an improvement is. If this wasn't the standard before, this is the standard now, right? So a perfect example of this, I would say in my own personal business, is pre-COVID, we did not do video tours of all of our listings. We probably only did video tours on luxury listings or waterfront, or we only did drone footage if it had a large lot or if it was on the water. We really didn't do those things. Well, since COVID, of which we had to do video tours of things, it is now a non-negotiable. No matter what house is listed, it is always going to have professional photography and it's going to have professional videography moving forward. It is a direct representation of the type of marketing that we do now as a team. So we want our sellers to see that and be impressed, right? When a seller feels like their home is being featured in MTV Cribs or the lifestyle of the rich and famous because it has the music and it has the beautiful shots, that is all a part of our marketing. And even though I'm not physically recording that video, the customer doesn't know that. The customer doesn't know when we say that this is something that we do for all of our customers. So when things went right, it is now the new standard that that is a part of our marketing budget on every single property moving forward. Now, where can we make improvements when things go wrong? Well, that's the easy part. It's pretty clear when things fail. And that's where we talk about this often, is that, people say fail forward as it's just 2 words flown together. But are you actually failing forward? Are you taking an opportunity? Are you building a new system? Are you setting a new standard? Are you taking that information to do that? Or are you just saying fail forward, we failed and we're not going to do it again, hoping to not do it again? So one of the things that we understand how this looks like is, how do we respond? Do we respond immediately, right? Listen, are we listening actively and ask open-ended questions to identify problems? So in terms of responding immediately, I might not have the answer immediately, but maybe I can also have maybe I can use a chat bot right? So when someone sends us a message, even though I'm not responding immediately, I have employed a chatbot that immediately responds, says, thank you so much for your inquiry. One of our agents will be with you as soon as possible. If you don't mind, I have a couple of questions which will help clarify in which direction to go. Are you looking to buy a home, sell a home, or are you just looking around? Well, if they say I'm looking to sell a home, then it'll redirect or it will forward that message to the listing specialist. If someone says that they want to buy a home, then it's going to go to buy a home, right? It's going to go to the buyer specialist. If they say just looking around, we go, fantastic, absolutely. Is there anything specifically you're looking for? Our agent list, homes that are currently available, how much your home is worth, right? And those are chatbots that you can preset those questions. So someone is feeling like they're interacting with someone, right? It's the same thing when you buy something from Amazon. I click a button, I bought it, it says, congratulations, we're working on your order. You're like, fantastic. They're not doing anything in that particular second, but you feel like someone has responded to you and you know what your next steps are. Listening actively and asking open-ended questions to identify problems. We then need to validate their feelings. I hear you. I would feel the same way. I can appreciate that you're feeling that way. Apologies are not enough. They are only the beginning of a possible recovery. I'm so sorry for that. It'll never happen again. Until it happens again. And then I know I'm so sorry. I told you it wasn't going to happen and here it happened again. Are we actually building anything in that says, I apologize and here's what we're going to do about it? Again, going back to the $2,000 rule from the Ritz Carlton, do we have all of the people on our team, is every person on our team empowered to resolve the issue without seeking approval? And do you already have in your mind that you will do what it takes in order to remedy the issue? And we're not going to be cheap about it. To commit, right, to the most satisfactory solution to the problem. Specify when and how that resolution will occur. And then we have to deliver the solution before the promised time. This is actually a huge thing, speaking of Amazon. This is a huge thing of what Amazon used to do. Amazon used to tell you that the property or the product will be delivered on Tuesday, even though they knew that they could get it to you by Monday. So they tell you that it would be delivered on Tuesday, and then they would deliver it on Monday to exceed the expectations, right? Now they deliver it in a day or an afternoon or within 24 hours if they can. So understanding that this is to exceed those expectations and to resolve the problem before it even happens. Once we have set the expectations and we've served the client and we've surveyed through the process, we now need to surpass those expectations. Surpassing expectations is to keep the customer informed, right? By preparing them for what comes next. We want to delight the customer, and then we want to do unexpected things in unexpected ways. So an example of this is to elevate your service. And I've been talking about Starbucks and I've been talking about the Ritz Carlton. At Keller Williams, we want our agents to have a level of service that creates an unforgettable customer experience, an experience that has a tangible difference from all other companies. And I've already explained that with Starbucks. I've explained that with the Ritz Carlton. Nordstrom's is another one, right? Nordstrom's they have the old story of someone had come through and had actually tried to return a product to the store of which they never even carried the product itself. But they went ahead and said, yes, we'll absolutely take care of that. We'll give you a refund. So understanding how are we delivering service, there's a new one to this mix, which is actually Chewy.com. And I've given this story, and a few other people have heard this story before, and it has been told in bolds and other things. So someone had 2 dogs. They had recently got a puppy, and they had an aging dog. And so one of the things that they did is they actually purchased the food from Chewy.com, because if you bought 2 bags of food, then it would be free shipping. Well, unfortunately, the older dog had passed away. the day before the next shipping was delivered. So the next day, directly after the passing of their older dog, they then had that scab reopened when they opened the door and they saw that the bag of food for the older dog was delivered. So the individual sent a message to Chewy.com saying, we're no longer going to need this bag. Can I return it? I haven't opened it, and we're not going to need it any longer. And actually, I'm going to discontinue my service with Chewy.com since we're not going to need 2 bags of dog food. We're no longer going to have the free shipping, and so therefore we'll just, we'll get the dog food from our local dog store. Chewy.com responded and said, we're so sorry for your loss. Please don't worry about returning the dog food. Please donate it to a local shelter or someone who would need the dog food. And in regards to the free shipping, we're going to go ahead and continue to give you free shipping as long as you're a customer with us. It's okay. You go, wow, that was really great service. And then, 2 days later, they received a card from Chewy.com that said, we're so sorry for your loss, about the dog. Then about a week later, they got another card from Chewy.com, and in it included a sketch that customer service representative or someone from Chewy.com was able to go in and look on Facebook or look on the internet, and they found a picture of the 2 dogs, and they had a sketch done of those 2 dogs, and it was delivered to the gentleman and his family in regards to the loss of their elder dog. Now, if you're a consumer and you're a customer of Chewy.com, how does that make you feel? Do you believe, while you're answering that, and please put that in the chat box, that is a live question. Now, do you believe that that person is going to continue their patronage of Chewy.com, first of all? And then secondly, the question is, do you think that had to do with just one customer service representative who felt a certain kind of way? Or do you believe that that is the standard of Chewy.com? Yeah, so Nicole said that she would feel awesome. John said that dog food is going to keep on coming. Debbie Watt said a lifetime customer. Kristen said special, noticed, important. A system is in place and a standard is there. Absolutely. And so when we understand this, this is elevating the level of service, right? There's a service I get at PetSmart, but I can tell you I don't get that service. And I'm getting that service from a person I've never met, to a store I've never been to, because I've done everything online with a company like Chewy.com. So understanding we can elevate our service, where are those opportunities in what we do? So understanding that the big benefits, just like that example of Chewy.com, is to know that your customer benefits when you have higher standards and you benefit when you have higher standards. And so once we have set expectations, we have served our customer, we have surveyed that customer, right? We have then exceeded those expectations. We now need to sustain the relationship. So sustaining the relationship is by staying top of mind. They need to know that you are still the real estate expert and the person that they can go to. And so one of the ways that we ask this is, how will you promote yourself? Again, this is a live question that I can't just give you 5 minutes to do. This really should start a conversation with yourself and your team over the course of the weekend or the next week, which is, how will we promote ourselves? What does our marketing plan look like? What is the mixture between marketing and prospecting that we intend to do? At Keller Williams, we already have a system in place, right? And so we're going to get to that soon, but understanding that the profit is in the post-closing opportunities. This number has actually gone up since the last time that I've seen it, that 90% of buyers would use their agent again, and yet only 12% do. And the reason why only 12% do is because the agent that they worked with doesn't communicate with them, that by the time that they buy a home again in 10 years from now, they don't know if they're still in the business. Quite frankly, they can't even remember their name. They've changed phones at least 4 times in the last 10 years, and they don't have that person's phone number saved. There are a multitude of reasons, but the main reason is because communication had stopped. The value of the customer no longer looked relevant. It was too far off in the horizon. And so those people were orphaned for someone else to pick up. Well, within Keller Williams, we understand that there's the 33 touch, which has now moved into the 36 touch to connect. This is a form of diversification of communication through in our emails, through our postcards or some kind of snail mail, through phone calls that happen on a quarterly basis, through promotional material that is going to be magnets or market reports, something that they're going to find value, something that's going to have a longer shelf life than just a postcard. We're going to then make sure that that's in addition to our social media posts. It's going to be in addition to the work that we do for other people. It's going to be in addition to the way that we show up on special occasions for that person, right? We are tech-enabled agents. Of course, the largest way that we're tech-enabled agents with Keller Williams is by using KW Command, by using the consumer app or the Kelly app. But one of the other ways is through Facebook. Facebook algorithmically is bringing the information to the forefront. I don't have to worry about being in the know of everybody in my world, because Facebook's going to let me know when someone in my world gets engaged, when someone in my world gets pregnant, when someone in my world loses a loved one, when someone in my world gets a job promotion, when someone in my world gets married, right? These things happen, and other people societally want to chip in, and algorithmically it's going to be brought to the top of my newsfeed. It's one thing to take that and just click a like button or to write a quick comment on the Facebook. It's another thing to take that information and then go to the store, right? Someone finds out that they're pregnant. We then go to the store, we purchase a card, we write the card, we hand sign it, we address it, we mail it out to that person so that we can deliver a level of customer experience, so that we can break through the noise of today, so that they have something and they feel special, they feel noticed, they feel important. Those are the words from Kristen, and I really like those, right? So the reward of communicating regularly is that we're going to have customers. We're also going to have vendors. We're going to have a huge network of people that then give us an opportunity to connect, because we are able to create that space of consistent communication. Customer loyalty, right? So to keep your customer a raving fan, they need to continue to feel your presence in the real estate industry. This is happening more and more in the form of video. It's happening more and more in the form of social media. But we realize that we have multiple ways of connecting with someone. I remember someone very close to us, actually is one of the attorneys that we retain, was thinking about purchasing a home or actually selling their home with someone else. And what we realized is that they had seen us as a customer, but they weren't seeing us as the person who could potentially help them. I go back and I look, and they were set up on an email campaign of which they haven't opened one of those emails in 2 years. So if they're not getting a postcard, if they're not getting a phone call, if they're not getting something as a reminder that we have a presence in the real estate industry, how could they possibly stay loyal to us? Even though our interactions, I had realized that our interactions were one way, where I was acting as a consumer and not as a potential person who can help them from a business-to-business perspective, right? That was a learning opportunity for me and for the team. So understanding that there is a systematic approach when we talk about the 5S model. So we have to understand the customer and set those expectations. We have to deliver on those expectations. We have to check in on those experiences. Then we have to surpass those expectations. And the sustainability of being with them is where we find our loyalty, it's where we find our profitability, it's where we find our growth, and where we find our raving fans for life. So this is one that I do want us to take some time and answer, and I want you to fill this out. Let's see, it is 2:35. Let's take 5 minutes. And again, I know you're not going to have the actual end result of what this is going to be. However, I would love for you to at least build the framework to say, what is your legacy? What do you want the legacy of your business? What do you want the legacy of your customer experience feeling to be like for the people that have used you and your business? Let's say 40 years from now, 20 years from now, whenever it may be, you are retiring and we are at your retirement party for your business. You've sold your business to new people and you've sold that database for a lot of money, millions of dollars for that database. You're set for retirement. We're there at the party and customers are all around you. These people you have now sold to them, you've sold to their children, you've sold to their grandchildren. You have really been a part of their life over the course of the last 20 or 40 years, whatever it is. What is your legacy? What is the legacy for you and your business? Go ahead and think about that. I'm going to shut up. And when you have your answer, go ahead and put it in the chat box. Yes, DJ, this is being recorded. As a reminder, if you're not sure why there's a long silence, we're taking the next 4 minutes or so, and you're writing, what is your legacy? What do you want your legacy to be for your business, for your career? What is it that your customers would say about you 20 years from now, 40 years from now, if they're sitting at your retirement party, and they're talking about the level of impact that you had on them and their ability to build wealth through real estate? Go ahead and put that in the chat box for me, please. Love that, Debbie. Debbie said that Debbie's motto or logo was, there's no place like home. She made sure you didn't find just a place to live, but a home to love. Love that, Debbie. I think we need a photo shoot of you in some red slippers there, Debbie. let's go ahead and take about another minute. Please make sure that you're putting your answers into the chat box. Even if it's the framework, it's one thing to just put it into the universe, put it in writing that you can then expand on it over the weekend or continue through it for the next couple of weeks, however long it takes you, understanding that this is the guiding light, right? This is the North Star around the activities that you do. Shobha, that she has bettered lives, fulfilled dreams, and created a life worth living, a business worth owning, and have made lives worth living. In doing so, she has changed lives one home at a time, thousands in counting. Absolutely love that, Shobha. John said that John cared for us over the years. When we thought of real estate, we thought of John. He would have the answers and get us what we were looking for. He thought of us, though, and beyond just being a customer more like friends. Great job, John. Moving through this process, right, when we think of, I was listening actually in preparation for this class, I was listening to one of the co-founders of the Ritz Carlton. He had written a book that was released in May of last year. And it's one that I haven't had an opportunity to read yet. But in the interview, he was actually quoting Aristotle. He says that every person wants to belong and wants to have purpose. So why wouldn't you give people purpose? Why wouldn't you give people in your team, in your world, a sense of purpose? And why would you not, as a company, have a purpose that you want to then translate into the way that your customers see you? And for John, right, he had that experience with several realtors over the years of saying, having that feeling, that genuine feeling that he could rely on someone and they were a part of his team of accountability, right? That they were in his corner of building wealth through real estate. Absolutely. All right, so we have made it through majority of the material. There are some activities that I'm going to be sharing with you. I'm going to be posting a link both in Google Drive and on Facebook. And so you will have that as an opportunity to go through. However, what I would love to know is, what are your overall ahas? As a reminder, ahas are agents helping agents. So these are the things that you hear. Something might have been meaningful for you today that someone else maybe didn't have an opportunity to pick up on. Maybe they were distracted, or maybe it just didn't sit with them the way that it did with you. Maybe you're able to share an aha that is going to cement one of those learning factors that they had before going back and re-listening to this recording. So please share, what were some ahas for you out of the last hour and 45 minutes that we've spent together, which is what was meaningful for you today? What was new for you? What is something that you plan to implement into your business? Go ahead and put that in the chat box for me, please. Shobha said, surveying clients along the process, not just at the end. I agree completely. I think that that is a huge aspect of us making sure that as we have those checkpoints through the process with our sellers or with our buyers, that we're really making sure that it's a 10+ experience through every step of the way. So absolutely, Shobha. What else? What are some other ahas that you had from this process? So Nicole said that she loved the idea of asking for the reviews maybe a day or so before the closing. Yeah, they're programmed, right? People are programmed to do what you ask them to do in order for them to get the home. Again, we talk about currency exchange. If you want this, you got to give me this, right? Or as Zig Ziglar would say, if you can get whatever you want if you help enough other people get what they want, right? So making sure that we're in that space. Shobha, no customers, no business, right? That's one of those that you're like, well, that's a duh, but it's always good for us to be reminded that even the best business model, the best business plan, the best logo, All of those things could be great. And if there is no customer, there is no business. Thank you for that, Shoba. John said, delivering this high level of service is actually much more rewarding and enjoyable for him, not just for the customer or client. What's fascinating about everything that we talked about today, even though we used the example of the Ritz Carlton with their $2,000 rule, or with Starbucks just immediately making a drink without asking any questions, is that delivering a higher level of customer experience, having it defined, knowing what your standards are, setting those expectations, right? Serving the customer, surveying throughout the process, surpassing those needs, and then making sure that we are sustaining that relationship actually doesn't require a lot of money. It actually doesn't require any more money than not delivering the service. So understanding that this is something that you can implement from day one, no matter whether or not you are at that $1 million level or wherever it might be. So please be mindful of that it's instant, that we can make a difference in our customers' lives by the choices that we make, the systems that we build, and the standards that we set for ourselves and our team. All right, someone give me one more aha, and then we're going to be out of here. It's a Friday afternoon. I would like to give you back the 13 minutes or so of your time. So please give one more aha, and then we'll be out of here. Deanne said, do unexpected things in unexpected ways. She loved that concept, and it's something that she plans to incorporate into her business. Thank you, Deanne. I really appreciate that. Thank you all for spending your Friday afternoon with me, understanding that you have the ability to take this and put it into your business immediately. As I said, I am going to be sharing a link on both Facebook and here on Zoom so that you'll be able to access the material. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I really appreciate it. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next week for the next round of classes and training here at Keller Williams. Take care.
Open up your dream. We were ordering some drinks. You said it would be alright. I tried to stop you asking why. You started out to face it. My heart went off like crazy. You placed your arms on my head. We fell into my stomach. You started out to face it. My heart went off like crazy. I felt the past for a second. We were about to make it.